When I was fighting for my life, my husband was folding his shirts into a suitcase. While a machine counted my heartbeats, he was counting how many pairs of socks he could fit into the side pocket. In the hospital, everything was white and bright and full of sounds. The soft beeping, the low talk of nurses in the hallway, the footsteps, the squeak of a cart, my own breathing heavy and slow in my ears. At home, he later told me it was very quiet. The drawers opened and closed. The zipper of his suitcase slid from one side to the other. The front door lock made that small, sharp click. I did not hear that door close, of course. I only felt a different kind of door closing inside me, a door I had not even known was there. I remember the ceiling first. That is such a strange thing to remember, but it is true. I remember lying there, unable to move much, staring up at the white hospital ceiling with its small round lights. One of the bulbs was a little darker than the others. I used to watch it and think, that one is tired too. My chest hurt. My throat was dry. I could taste metal in my mouth. I was afraid, but it was a quiet fear, a slow fear, like cold water rising very softly around your legs. They told me later that my blood pressure had dropped so low they were worried I would not wake up. They told me that my heart had worked too hard, that the infection had moved too fast. They told me words I did not fully understand. Sepsis, failure, crisis, big words, scary words, heavy words. But in that moment, alone under the bright light, I only thought of simple things. My daughter's hair when she sleeps, the sound of the kettle in our kitchen, the smell of my husband's shirt when he hugged me from behind while I stood at the sink. I held on to those small pictures in my mind like they were ropes. I did not know that at that same time, my husband was standing in our bedroom, his hand resting on the suitcase, breathing fast, not from running but from deciding. I did not know that while I was asking God in a broken whisper, "Please, please, not yet," he was silently saying to himself, "I cannot do this. I cannot stay." I did not know that my daughter, our daughter, was sitting on the floor of the hallway back home, her back against the wall, her face wet with tears, watching her father pick up his car keys. I did not know any of it. I only knew the light above me, the sound of the machine, and the strange, deep feeling that something big was changing, far away from that hospital bed. If you had told me, years earlier, that this would be my life, I would have laughed. I would have shaken my head and kissed my husband on the cheek and said, "Not us. We love each other too much." But life does not ask what we think we deserve. It just comes, wave after wave, day after day, until one day we look around and nothing is where it used to be. That night, as my body fought to stay, my husband packed his bags to leave. And this is the story of how we got there, and how I walked out of that hospital bed with an empty space beside me and still chose to live. Years before that night, before the white walls and the slow beeping and the sharp smell of medicine, there was a little coffee shop on the corner of a busy street. That is where I first saw him. I used to stop there after work. It was a small place, with round wooden tables and a big window that looked out onto the road. People rushed past outside, but inside it was calm. The kind of place where time felt a little slower. He was sitting alone at a table by the window, a book open in front of him, a half-finished cup of coffee by his hand. There was nothing very special in the way he looked, if I try to be honest. Just dark hair, a tired face, and a shirt that needed ironing. But he smiled at the waiter. And the way he smiled made me look twice. It was a warm smile, a soft one. The kind of smile that said, "I see you, thank you, really." Not everyone smiles like that, I remember thinking. He must be kind. I stood in line, waiting for my drink, and I kept glancing at him. I was not bold, I was shy, actually. But that day I had had a long, heavy day at work. I felt lonely and a bit empty, and sometimes loneliness pushes you to do strange, brave things. When my order came, the waiter misheard my name and called out something completely different. I laughed, and the man by the window looked up at the sound of my laugh. Our eyes met. He smiled again. That same gentle smile. And just like that, my life began to change. I walked over and asked, in a voice that sounded much more confident than I felt, "Is anyone sitting here?" He shook his head. "No, please, go ahead." I sat down across from him. For a moment, I did not know what to say. The city moved outside the window. The coffee cup felt warm in my hands. My heart beat too fast. "What are you reading?" I asked. He turned the book toward me. "A boring book about numbers," he said. "Work stuff." I laughed. "Numbers pay the bills, though." "That they do," he agreed. "I'm David, by the way." "Anna," I said. That was all, just two names, a tired day, and a shared table near a big window full of light. We started talking. Small things at first, work, the weather, why the coffee there was always a little too strong. But the small talk did not stay small for long. Something about him made it easy to talk. My shoulders relaxed. My voice grew softer. He listened, really listened. His eyes stayed on my face when I spoke. and every now and then he asked a quiet question that showed he had heard every word. He told me he was working in accounting, that he lived with a friend near the river, that his mother worried about him being alone. He laughed when he said that. I told him about my job at a small office, about my habit of eating cereal for dinner, about my love for old movies and the way I sometimes talked back to the screen as if the actors could hear me. We talked until the light outside started to fade and the waiter began to wipe down the empty tables. "I should go," I said, standing up slowly. "Me too," he replied, but he did not stand right away. He looked at me for a moment like he was trying to decide something. "Maybe," he began, and then he stopped. He cleared his throat, smiled that same shy smile, and said, "Maybe I'll see you here again sometime." "Maybe," I said. I walked home that evening with a lightness in my step that I had not felt in a long time. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement. The air was cool. My heart was warm. I did see him again, and again, and again. We started meeting there on purpose, not by chance. At first it was once a week, then twice, then almost every day. The waiter began to greet us like regulars. He would laugh and say, "Your table is ready," like we already belonged there. We would sit side by side sometimes, looking out of the big window, watching the people hurry past. It became our little world, our pause from the noise of life. I learned that David liked simple things, fresh bread, old songs, quiet mornings. He had a small scar above his eyebrow from when he fell off his bike as a child. He was afraid of deep water but loved the sound of rain. He learned that I was scared of the dark but loved the night sky, that I had lost my father when I was young, that I still kept one of my father's shirts in the back of my closet because I could not let it go. He looked sad when I told him that. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's okay," I whispered, but my eyes felt hot. He did not try to fix it. He just reached out and very gently touched my hand on the table, just for a second, just enough. I think I fell in love with him in moments like that. Small, kind moments. Nothing big or dramatic, just the way he made space for my pain without running from it. There was a day, about a year after we first met, when he asked me to be his wife. It was not a big, public thing. No crowd, no loud music, just us in our little kitchen in the small apartment we had finally moved into together. The sink was full of dishes. There was pasta boiling on the stove. The radio played a soft song in the background. He was cutting vegetables when he suddenly went still. I saw him take a deep breath. He turned to me, his hands shaking a little, and took a tiny box out of his pocket. "Anna," he said, his voice low and serious in a way I did not hear often. "I do not have much, you know that. I cannot promise you big houses or fancy trips, but I can promise I will try every day to make you feel safe and loved. Will you marry me?" I did not cry right away. For a second, I just stared at him, my mind quiet. Then the tears came, soft and full and gentle. I nodded. I could not even speak. He slipped the ring onto my finger. It was a simple ring, a small stone. Nothing flashy, but it felt heavy with meaning. We held each other in the kitchen in the soft yellow light above the sink. The pasta boiled over on the stove, but we did not care. The radio played an old love song. For a little while, the whole world shrank to the space between our two hearts. We got married in a small ceremony, just family and a few close friends. I wore a simple white dress. My mother cried. His mother cried. We laughed and cut the cake and took too many photos that came out a little blurry but full of joy. I remember looking at him as we danced our first dance, his hand on my back, his breath close to my ear. I remember thinking, this is it. This is my person. This is home. We moved into a slightly bigger apartment later. Not big, but big enough for dreams. There was a small balcony where we could see the tops of trees. There was a tiny spare room that we called the maybe room. We did not say baby room out loud at first. It felt too big, too fragile a wish. But in time, the maybe room changed. One morning, I sat on the edge of our bed, holding a small white stick with 2 pink lines on it. I remember my hands shaking. My heart felt like it had a bird inside it, beating its wings. "David," I called, my voice trembling. He came rushing from the kitchen, a piece of toast in his hand. What is it?" I held up the test. His eyes went wide. His mouth dropped open. For a second, he just stared. Then he laughed, a loud, happy laugh that I had never heard before. He dropped the toast into the trash without looking and pulled me into his arms. "We're having a baby," he asked, as if he needed to hear it again. "Yes," I whispered into his shoulder. "We're having a baby." We painted the maybe room a soft yellow. We bought a second-hand crib. We folded tiny clothes and placed them carefully in the drawers. We argued gently over names. Chose Lily for a girl, Daniel for a boy. When our daughter was born on a rainy afternoon, the world felt new. They placed her on my chest, and she was warm and small and perfect. Her fingers curled around mine. I looked at her tiny face, her closed eyes, her little mouth, and I felt something break open inside me. a kind of love I had never known. David stood by the bed, tears streaming down his face. He kissed my forehead again and again. "She is beautiful," he whispered. "You did it. You are amazing." We named her Lily. The first night home with her, we sat on the edge of our bed, both of us staring at the sleeping baby in the crib next to us. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the night lamp. The rain tapped gently on the window. "Are we ready for this?" I whispered. He reached for my hand. "No," he said with a small laugh, "but we will learn together." For a while, that is how it was. We were tired, yes. We were often stressed. There were hard days with no sleep and loud cries and cold dinners. But there was also laughter and soft baby hair against my cheek and small hands reaching for us. We were a family. I would watch David lying on the floor with Lily, making funny faces to make her laugh. I would see the way he looked at her, as if she was the best thing he had ever seen. I would hear the way he sang to her at night, off-key, but full of love. In those moments, I believed with my whole heart that we would be okay. That we would grow old together. That one day we would be those old people in the park holding hands on a bench. I did not know then that love, as deep and real as it was, sometimes is not enough to carry a person through certain kinds of fear. I did not know then that one day I would look at this same man and think, "Who are you? Where did you go?" For a long time we were ordinary, just that. Ordinary, work, laundry, bills, bedtime stories, birthday cakes, small trips to the park on Sundays. Quiet evenings on the couch, our feet touching under a shared blanket while a movie played on the screen. Life moved forward in little steps. We did not notice the changes coming. They came like slow shadows at the edge of the light. It started with tiredness, not the normal tiredness of work and parenting, a deeper one. I began to feel it first in the mornings. I would wake up and feel like I had not slept at all. My muscles ached. Going up the stairs left me breathless. At first, I told myself, "You are just busy, you are getting older, it is normal." I did not want to worry David. He was already under a lot of pressure at work. He would come home late, shoulders tight, his forehead lined with stress. "I am fine," I told myself. "This will pass." But it did not pass. It got worse. One day, I was in the kitchen making tea. My hands started shaking so badly I could not hold the cup. It slipped from my fingers and broke on the floor. Hot tea splashed on my feet. I leaned on the counter, breathing hard, my heart racing. David came running in. "Anna, what happened?" "Nothing," I said too quickly. "I just dropped it." He looked at me. His eyes moved down to my hands. They were still shaking. "Are you feeling okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but worried. "I am just tired." I said, "I think I need more sleep." He did not push. That was one thing about him. He did not like to push. It was kind in one way, but in another way it meant that sometimes he did not see what he did not want to see. "Okay," he said slowly. "Just tell me if it gets worse, all right?" "I will," I lied. Days went by, then weeks. The tiredness grew. I started losing weight without trying. I felt pain in places that had never hurt before. My skin looked pale. My hair lost its shine. I began to have night sweats, waking up with the sheets damp and my heart pounding. I still kept quiet. We had bills to pay. Lily had school events. The rent had gone up. David was working longer hours. There was always something more urgent than my own body. One evening, we sat at the kitchen table. The light above us buzzed softly. Papers were spread out, bills, letters, notes from school. David rubbed his eyes. "They are cutting people again at work," he said. "I need to take on more projects if I want to be safe." "I am sorry," I said, reaching for his hand across the table. He shook his head. "It is not your fault, it is just life." We sat in silence for a moment. The clock ticked on the wall. "I have been so tired lately," I said quietly, more to myself than to him. He looked up. "Me too," he said with a tired smile. "We are getting old, huh?" I opened my mouth to say more. To say, "No, it is more than that. Something is wrong." But then Lily walked into the kitchen, holding a drawing she had made. "Look," she said. "I drew us." The moment passed. I smiled at the drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. Simple. Happy. I did not know that, deep inside my body, something dark was growing. Something that did not care about our bills or our plans or our little drawings of suns. It took a fainting spell to finally push me to a doctor. I was at the grocery store. I remember the bright lights, the soft music, the smell of bread from the bakery section. I pushed the cart slowly, feeling dizzy. I thought I just needed some fresh air. I reached for a carton of milk. The floor tilted. My vision went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the cold tile floor. A stranger's face hovered above me. Voices sounded far away. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Stay with us, okay?" The hospital that time was just tests and questions. Blood tests. Scans. Words I could not pronounce. David sat beside me on the plastic chair, his hand on my knee. "It is probably nothing," he said. "Maybe low blood sugar." I wanted to believe him. I looked at his face and tried to take strength from it. But when the doctor came back into the room later, holding a stack of papers, his eyes were serious. "Mrs. Collins," he said, sitting down across from us. "We have found something. We need to talk." The air in the small room changed. It felt thicker, heavier. David's hand tightened on my knee. "What do you mean?" I asked. My voice sounded small in my own ears. The doctor took a breath. He began to explain. He pointed at images on the paper. There was a shadow where there should have been light, a mass where there should have been empty space. Cancer. That was the word that cut through everything. I remember the way it sounded in the room. Sharp, cold, final. My ears rang. I saw the doctor's lips moving, but I did not hear the next few sentences. It was as if I had been dropped underwater. The room blurred. The only thing that broke through was David's voice, thin and shaky. What can we do?" he asked. The doctor talked about treatment, about chemotherapy, about possible surgery, about side effects, about timelines, about hope and risk. The words floated around me like papers in a storm. I sat there staring at my hands. They looked the same, my ring still on my finger, my nails in need of trimming, my skin a little dry. It felt impossible that something so huge could be happening inside me while the outside looked so plain. When we walked out of the hospital that day, the sky was very blue. The sun was bright. People walked past us, talking, laughing, checking their phones. Cars rushed by. A child cried for ice cream. The world looked normal. I wanted to scream, "Do you not see? Everything is different now." But I just walked slowly, my hand in David's hand. We sat in the car. The silence between us felt heavy. He stared straight ahead at the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. "Say something," I whispered. His jaw moved, but no sound came out at first. Then he said very softly, "We will fight this." I nodded. "Yes, we will." He turned to look at me. His eyes were wet. "I will be here," he said. "I promise." I believed him. We told Lily that night. She was 12 then, old enough to understand too much, young enough to still hope with all her heart. We sat her down at the kitchen table. The same table where we had once spread out drawings and school letters and bills. The same yellow light shone above us. I took her hand. "Sweetheart," I said, "the doctors found something in Mommy's body. It is called cancer. I am going to have to take strong medicine to try to make it go away." Her eyes filled with tears immediately. "Are you going to die?" she asked in a thin voice. I swallowed hard. I did not want to lie, but I did not want to scare her more than she already was. "I am going to fight very hard not to," I said. "The doctors are going to help me. Dad is going to help me, and you can help me too just by being you." She looked at David. "Dad," he cleared his throat. "We are in this together," he said. "All of us okay." She nodded slowly. Then she got up, walked around the table, and climbed onto my lap like she used to when she was little. "I will help you," she whispered into my neck. "I will be good, I promise. I will help." I held her tight. I closed my eyes. For a moment I let the tears slip down my face and onto her hair. The months that followed were a blur of appointments, tests, and needles. The first chemotherapy session, the room was bright and cold. There were other people there, sitting in chairs, hooked up to bags of clear liquid. Some slept. Some read. Some stared at the wall. I sat in the chair, my arm outstretched, a needle in my vein. The nurse checked the lines, smiled softly, and said, "You are doing well." David sat in the chair beside me. He held my other hand. He tried to smile, but his eyes looked lost. "This is the first step," he said. "One step at a time, right?" "Yes," I whispered. "One step." The medicine moved slowly into my body. I could taste metal again. My stomach turned. A cold feeling spread through my arm. When we got home, I was so tired I could barely make it to the bed. I lay down in my clothes. David took off my shoes and covered me with a blanket. He brushed the hair from my forehead. "I'll make you some soup later," he said. I nodded, already slipping into a strange, heavy sleep. The days after that were hard. Nausea, weakness, pain. The world narrowed to the size of our bedroom and the bathroom. Sometimes I could hear life happening in the rest of the house. The clink of dishes, the sound of the television, the murmur of voices. I knew David was trying. He drove me to appointments. He picked up medicine. He reminded me to drink water. At night, he slept beside me, though I could feel the distance in the way his body curled away as if trying to find space. I do not blame him. He was afraid. The woman he knew, the one who always took care of everything, who cooked and laughed and planned and nagged, was now lying in bed, pale and quiet. Sometimes I saw the fear in his eyes when he looked at me. It was not just fear of losing me. It was fear of not knowing who he was if he was not the one being taken care of. Hair loss was the next step. One morning, I woke up and my pillow was covered in strands of my hair. Long, dark hair. I picked up handfuls of it, my heart heavy. David came in and stopped in the doorway. "Oh," he said, his voice small. "I knew it would happen," I said, trying to sound light. "The doctor said so." I stood up and went to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was thinner. My eyes looked bigger somehow. The hair around my face was ragged. Maybe we should just cut it, I said. He stood behind me, his reflection meeting mine. Are you sure? He asked. I nodded. It is just hair, it will grow back. It's not just hair, of course. It was part of how I felt like myself, but I did not want to cry over it. I was tired of crying. We did not have money to go to a salon, so he did it at home. I sat on a chair in the bathroom. He stood behind me with a pair of scissors, his hands shook. Do you want to wait? He asked. No, I said. Just do it. He began to cut. The sound of the blades closing over the strands was loud in the small room. Hair fell to the floor around me. I felt each loss like a tiny goodbye. At one point, I saw a tear fall onto my shoulder. It was not mine. Hey, I said softly. Look at me. He stopped cutting and met my eyes in the mirror. I am still here, I said. Okay, I am still me. He nodded, but his face crumpled. He leaned forward and kissed the top of my head, which was now uneven and thin. Later, when I finally shaved the rest off, I stood in front of the mirror alone. My head was bare. I did not recognize the woman looking back at me at first. Then slowly I did. You are still you, I whispered to my reflection. You are still you. Life became a cycle of hospital visits and days in bed. David tried to keep up with work. He tried to take care of the house. He helped Lily with her homework when he could. But I could see the weight on his shoulders growing. He grew quieter. He stopped making small jokes at dinner. He began to spend more time in the other room in the evenings, scrolling through his phone, staring at nothing. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. The house was silent. I rolled over. The space beside me in the bed was empty. I sat up slowly and listened. I heard a sound from the living room, very soft, like someone trying not to cry out loud. I stood up, holding onto the wall, and walked down the hallway in the dark. The living room was dim, lit only by the glow from the streetlight outside the window. David sat on the couch, his elbows on his knees, his hands on his face. His shoulders shook. I had never seen him cry like that before, not even when his father died, not even when we almost lost the apartment once. For a moment, I just watched him. I felt a strange mix of love and pain. I wanted to go to him, to put my hand on his back, to say, "We will be okay." But I also felt very alone, standing there in the dark, my own body weak, my own fear heavy. In the end, I walked back to bed without saying anything. I lay there staring at the ceiling. We were both alone in our own fear in the same house. As the months went on, little cracks began to show. He would snap at small things, a dish left in the sink, a bill we had forgotten to pay, the sound of the hospital calling to confirm another appointment. I cannot keep doing this, he said once, throwing his keys onto the table with more force than needed. I am missing work, we are behind on rent, everything is falling apart. I did not ask for this, I said quietly. He froze, his shoulders dropped. I know, he whispered. I am sorry, I did not mean it that way. I know, I said, but a small hurt stayed. He began to talk more often about money, about how tired he was, about how he felt like he was drowning. He started working extra shifts again, even though I needed him more at home. I have to, he said when I asked. Otherwise, what are we going to do if he did not finish the sentence? Sometimes I caught him looking at me with an expression I could not fully read. Part sadness, part anger, part something like resentment. I pretended not to see. I wanted to keep believing in the promise he had made in the car that day. I will be here, I promise. People around us tried to help in small ways. My friend Sarah would come by with meals. She would sit on the edge of the bed and chat about normal things, shows she was watching, funny stories from her work. My mother would call every evening asking the same questions. How are you? Did you eat? What did the doctor say? Her voice was always calm but tight, like it might break if she let it. David's mother, Ruth, came over sometimes too. She would stand in the doorway of the bedroom, her arms crossed, her face lined with worry. You are too thin, she would say. You should eat more. I am trying, I would answer. She would turn to David. This is too much for you, she would say to him in a low voice, but I could still hear. You are going to make yourself sick too, he would shrug. What else can I do, Mom? You have to think of your future, she would say. You cannot throw away your whole life. I would lie there, listening, pretending to sleep. Their words fell heavy in the air. One afternoon, I woke from a nap and heard them in the kitchen. The door was not fully closed. Their voices drifted down the hallway. This is not what you signed up for, his mother said softly. You are still young, you have your whole life ahead of you. I made vows, he said. His voice sounded tired. Vows are not meant to be chains, she replied. What if she does not get better, David? Are you going to give up your entire life, your happiness, Lily's future? Do not talk like that, he said sharply. She can hear you. She is asleep, his mother said. And I am just being honest. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You are working yourself to death. You are not yourself anymore. I have to be here, he said. She needs me. There was a pause. And what about what you need? His mother asked gently. Does anyone care about that? The words cut into me, even though they were not meant for me. I turned my face into the pillow and bit my lip to keep from crying. I knew his mother loved him. I knew she was worried. But in that moment, I felt like a burden, like a weight around his neck pulling him under. That is a hard feeling to sit with. That night when he came to bed, I turned toward the wall. He lay down beside me, but there was a distance between us that was not just about space. I whispered into the darkness, "Are you okay?" "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Just tired." We lay there in silence for a long time. "David," I said finally, my voice shaking, "if you ever feel like you cannot do this, you have to tell me. Do not let it grow inside you." He was quiet for so long I thought he had fallen asleep. Then he said very softly, "What good would it do? What can you do about it?" His words hurt more than he probably meant them to. I pulled the blanket up to my chest. "I do not know," I said, "but we used to talk about things, even the hard things." Did not answer. In the weeks after that, it felt like we were walking on two different paths, side by side but not touching. I was on the path of sickness, doctors, pain, hope, and fear. He was on the path of bills, work, pressure, and a growing sense of being trapped. We could see each other, but we could not quite reach. The turning point came on a cold evening. That day I had felt strange since morning, a deeper kind of weakness. My hands were cold. I could not get warm, even with a blanket. My heart raced even when I was just sitting. By late afternoon, I had a fever. It rose fast. My skin was boiling, but I shivered. I called out for Lily, who was in her room studying. She came running. Her face went pale when she touched my forehead. "Mom, you are burning up," she said, her voice high with panic. "Call your dad," I whispered, "and then call an ambulance." Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone. I remember small pieces of what came next. The sound of sirens. The bright lights in the ambulance. A paramedic leaning over me saying, "Stay with us, okay? Keep your eyes open." The ceiling lights passing overhead as they rushed me through the hospital corridors. I heard someone say sepsis. Someone else said critical. It felt like I was listening from very far away. David's face flashed in my mind. I pictured him at work, sitting at his desk under harsh office lights. I thought, he will come, he always comes. Then the world narrowed to pain and light and sound, and then less and less sound. They told me later that my blood pressure dropped very low, that my organs were under great stress, that I was close to the edge. It is strange, but I do not remember fear in that moment. I remember a kind of quiet. I remember thinking, so this is how it feels to let go. They moved fast. Machines beeped. Voices called out numbers. I could feel small, sharp pains, needles, lines, something being pushed into my veins. Then for a while there was almost nothing. A white ceiling. A soft, distant beeping. The sound of air moving. When I woke up, I did not know right away that I had been close to death. I only knew that my throat hurt, my body felt heavy, and my mind was slow. The room was dim. A monitor glowed softly. There was a window, but the blinds were half closed. I could see a strip of gray sky. I turned my head with effort toward the chair beside the bed. It was empty. I closed my eyes again. Of course, I thought. He must have stepped out, maybe to get coffee, maybe to talk to a doctor. Maybe he had gone home to check on Lily. I slept again. Hours passed like drops of water, slow and heavy. The next time I woke, my mouth was dry. I saw a nurse standing at the foot of the bed, checking something on the monitor. "Water," I croaked. She came to my side quickly. She helped me drink a few small sips through a straw. The water tasted like life. "How long?" I tried to ask. "How long have I been here?" She checked my chart. "You came in last night," she said. "It has been about 12 hours. 12, I repeated slowly. My mind cleared a little. I looked at the empty chair again. "My husband," I said. "Was he here?" She hesitated just a second. "He came in with you," she said, "but he left after a while. Your daughter has been calling for updates. She is at home." "He left?" I asked. The words felt strange in my mouth. "He said he had to take care of some things," the nurse said gently. "He said he would be in touch." I stared at her. A small, cold seed of something dropped into my stomach. "Oh," I said. She touched my arm lightly. "You should rest," she said. "You have been through a lot." When she left, the room felt very large and very empty. I looked at the chair again. I pictured him sitting there, his head in his hands, his eyes closed. I tried to imagine him, but my mind showed me something else. Him standing in our bedroom, the suitcase on the bed, the closet door open. His hands slowly folding shirts. I shook my head as if I could push the thought away. No, he would not now, not when I had just almost died. I closed my eyes. At home, while I lay in that bed with tubes in my arms, my daughter sat on the hallway floor, her back against the wall. She had been awake all night, waiting for news. When the nurse called to say I was stable, she had cried with relief. Then she had watched her father take the suitcase down from the top of the closet. "Dad," she said, her voice small. "What are you doing?" He did not look at her right away. I need to get away for a while," he said. "I need to clear my head." She stood up. "Now," she asked. "Now when Mom is in the hospital, when she almost," her voice broke. He closed his eyes for a second. His hands rested on the suitcase. I cannot breathe here, he said finally. Everywhere I look, I see her sick. I hear the machines. I smell the hospital even when I am home. I wake up at night thinking she has stopped breathing. Then you should be there, Lily said. Her cheeks were wet. She should not be alone. He shook his head slowly. I have been there, he said. For months I am so tired, Lily, I am so tired. We are all tired, she cried. Do you think she's not tired? She is fighting for her life, Dad. Her words hung in the air like something holy and heavy. He winced. I know, he whispered. I know, but I cannot do this anymore. I am losing myself. You are losing us, she said. He flinched. I will send money, he said, as if that could fix it. I will help, I will call, but I cannot stay here. Not like this. I feel like I am drowning every second. I am sorry. He zipped the suitcase. The sound was loud in the quiet apartment. Where will you go? She asked, her voice hoarse. I will stay with Grandma for a while, he said, just until I get myself together. Does she know? She asked. He nodded. We talked. Of course you did, she said bitterly. He picked up the suitcase. He walked toward the door. Please do not go, she whispered. He stopped. His back was to her. His hand rested on the doorknob. His shoulders slumped. I love you, he said. You know that, right? She did not answer. He opened the door. Cold air rushed in from the hallway. He stepped out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. That was it. A simple sound, a simple action, but it cut our family in two. Back in the hospital, I did not know the details yet. I only knew that the chair beside my bed remained empty. Texts came to my phone much later. A short, flat message from him. I am sorry. I cannot do this anymore. I need time away. I will send money. I hope you understand. I stared at the small, glowing screen in my hand. The words blurred. I thought of all the times we had said, in sickness and in health. Not just on our wedding day, but in small, casual jokes. You are stuck with me, we used to say. Even if I get old and gray and forget where I put my keys. Now, when sickness had come for real, when the words were not just a sweet idea but a test, he was gone. I did not scream. I did not cry loudly. Maybe I should have. Maybe that would have been more normal. But I just lay there, feeling a strange emptiness. Like someone had reached inside my chest and gently taken something out. A nurse came in a little later. She saw my face. She noticed the phone in my hand. Are you okay? She asked, her voice soft. My husband left, I said, in a calm, flat voice I did not recognize as my own. He left while I was here. I was fighting for my life. He was packing his bags. Her eyes filled with something like pity. She opened her mouth to say, I am sorry, but then closed it again. Maybe she had seen this before. Maybe there were no right words. She reached out and squeezed my hand, not as a nurse, as a person. You are still here, she said gently, and that is something. Her words echoed in my mind long after she left. You are still here. You are still here. When Lily first came to see me after that, she tried to be strong. She walked into the room with her shoulders straight, her jaw tight, but her eyes were puffy from crying. Hey, Mom, she said, forcing a small smile. Hey, my love, I whispered. My voice was weak, but my heart ached to see her. She sat in the chair. She took my hand carefully, as if I might break. You scared me, she said, a little laugh breaking through her words. Again. Sorry, I said. I will try not to make a habit of it. We both smiled for a second. Then her smile faded. Mom, she said, there is something I need to tell you. I knew even before she spoke. Somewhere inside, I already knew. Your father left, I said quietly, her eyes widened. How did you? He sent me a message, I said. A very brave thing to do from a distance. Tears filled her eyes. He packed his suitcase while you were here. I begged him to stay. He said he needed time. He said he felt like he was drowning. He went to Grandma. I took a slow, careful breath. The small movement hurt. I am sorry you had to see that, I whispered. He is a coward, she said suddenly. Her voice shook with anger. How could he leave you like this? How could he leave me? Do not hate him, I said softly. The words surprised even me as I spoke them. She stared at me. Why not? He deserves it. Maybe, I said. I looked up at the ceiling. But hate is heavy. You are too young to carry something that heavy for long. What about you? She asked. Do you hate him? I thought about that, really thought. For a moment I searched inside myself for rage, for a burning anger that could match the size of what he had done. But all I felt was a deep, quiet sadness, a loss that went beyond words. No, I said finally. I do not hate him. I think he is weak. I think he is scared. I think he failed us, but I do not hate him. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. He promised, she said. Yes, I said. He did. Silence filled the room. The beeping of the monitor was steady now. The light from the window was soft. What are we going to do, Mom? She whispered. There was a small child inside that question, even though she tried to sound older. We are going to live, I said, though I did not yet know how. We are going to put one foot in front of the other. We are going to ask for help. We are going to cry when we need to. We are going to laugh when we can. We are going to keep going. Without him, she asked. I swallowed. My throat hurt. If he cannot walk with us, I said slowly, then yes, without him. The days that followed were hard. I stayed in the hospital longer than planned so they could watch me. I had time to think, too much time. At night, when the hallway was quiet and the nurses spoke more softly, I would lie awake and replay my life with David in my mind. The coffee shop, the kitchen proposal, the yellow maybe room, the nights with Lily's small body between us in bed when she was sick, the way he used to kiss my shoulder in the morning before getting up. I would then move in my mind to the newer memories, the way his eyes had begun to look far away, the sound of him crying alone in the living room, the words of his mother in the kitchen, the empty chair beside my hospital bed, the short, ugly message on my phone. Sometimes I would feel anger rise up, hot and sharp. How could you, I would think. How could you leave now of all times? But the anger never stayed long. It burned quickly and then turned to ash. Underneath was just a tired kind of grief. One evening, Sarah came to visit. She brought a small plant in a pot. Hospital rooms need something green, she said with a half smile as she placed it on the windowsill. She sat down in the chair. I heard, she said softly. News travels fast, I replied. I am so sorry, she said, her eyes shone with tears. I never thought he would. Me neither, I said. But here we are. She hesitated. Do you want to talk about it? I looked at the little plant. Its leaves were bright and new, reaching for the weak light. I think, I said slowly, that he reached a point inside himself where he felt he would break if he stayed. And instead of letting himself break and maybe grow, he ran. I think he chose himself over me, over us. That is a very kind way to put it, she said. The unkind way, I said with a small, dry laugh, is that he was a coward. We both sat in silence for a moment. I do not know what I am going to do, I admitted. About the bills, about the rent, about everything. You do not have to know right now, she said gently. Right now you have one job, stay alive. We can figure out the rest later. Her words wrapped around me like a blanket. Stay alive. One job, so I did. I let the doctors run their tests. I took the medicine they gave me. I allowed myself to be helped, even when it hurt my pride. I let myself rest. And slowly, very slowly, my body began to rise from the lowest point. I was not healed, not fully, but I was stable. I could breathe without a machine. I could sit up in bed. I could eat small meals. The day they told me I could go home, I felt a strange mix of joy and fear. Home. The place where he was not. They brought a wheelchair to take me out. I sat in it while the nurse gathered my papers and instructions. Lily walked beside me, holding a small bag with my things. We moved down the hall. The doors opened. The cool outside air touched my face. It smelled different from the hospital, more alive, more real. We did not have a car anymore. David had taken it. So Sarah came with her small car to pick us up. The ride home was quiet. I looked out the window at the passing streets. Everything felt both familiar and strange. We passed our usual grocery store, the park where we had once taken Lily to play, the coffee shop where I had first met him. I saw our old table through the big window. It was empty. My chest ached, not from my illness, but from the memory. We reached our building. The stairs looked higher than I remembered. Sarah and Lily helped me up one step at a time. I leaned on the railing. My breath came fast. When we opened the door to the apartment, I froze in the doorway. The air smelled like emptiness. Nothing big had changed, and yet everything had. His shoes were gone from the space by the door. His jacket was not hanging on the hook. The keys were not in the little bowl on the shelf. I walked slowly into the living room. The couch was there, the coffee table, the TV, but the small things that had been his, a mug, a worn book, a pillow he always used, were missing. The absence felt loud. I went to our bedroom. The closet door was slightly open. Inside, my clothes hung on one side, a little lost. The other side was half empty. A few things still there, some shirts, a tie, but most of it gone. The bed looked bigger than before. I sat down on the edge of it and closed my eyes. I let myself feel it, the loss, the betrayal, the fear. Tears came, slow and silent. Lily sat beside me. She put her head on my shoulder. We will be okay, she said, but her voice trembled. I do not know how yet, I said honestly, but we will try. The weeks after I came home were some of the hardest of my life. Physically, I was weak. Walking from the bedroom to the kitchen felt like climbing a hill. My muscles ached. My head spun. Some days I could not keep food down. Some nights I woke up drenched in sweat. Emotionally, I was even weaker. There were moments when I lay in bed and thought, maybe it would have been easier if I had not woken up, if I had just slipped away in that hospital room. Then I would not have had to feel this. But then I would hear Lily's voice in the hallway. I would see her moving quietly around the house, trying to be strong, trying to do the dishes and the laundry and her homework and still be a child somehow. And I knew, even in my darkest thoughts, that I could not leave her if I had any choice at all. I had to learn to live with two pains at the same time, the pain in my body and the pain in my heart. Some days it felt like too much. Sarah came often. She brought groceries. She helped with cleaning. She sat with me when Lily was at school so I was not alone. Once I said to her, "You must be tired of coming here all the time." She looked at me as if I had said something strange. "You were there for me when my father died," she said. "You sat on my floor and passed me tissues for hours. You made me soup. You called me every day. Do you remember?" I did. "This is what we do," she said simply. "We show up, that is love." Her words stayed with me. Not everyone left. Some people stayed. My mother called more often. Sometimes she would just breathe on the phone while I breathed on my end. No words, just presence. One afternoon, we sat at the small kitchen table, just Lily and me. A stack of bills lay between us. Electricity, water, rent, hospital charges. I held a pen in my hand. It did not feel like enough. "I can get a part-time job after school," Lily said suddenly. "At the grocery store maybe, or the coffee shop. I can help." "You are 12, I said gently. "Your job is to go to school." "I am almost 13, she said, lifting her chin. "And I want to help." I looked at her, really looked. She had grown in these months, not just taller, older in her eyes. "I will talk to your school," I said. "We will see if there is any support. I will call the social worker at the hospital. Maybe there are programs we do not know about yet." She looked relieved that I had some plan, even if it was small. I picked up the phone the next day. I made calls. I explained our situation over and over, my illness, my husband leaving, the bills we could not pay. It is not easy to ask for help. Pride is a quiet, stubborn thing, but I pushed past it for her. In time, small pieces of help came. A discount on the hospital bill. Temporary assistance for rent. Food vouchers from a local group. It was not magic. It did not fix everything, but it was something. At night, I began a new habit. I would sit on the edge of my bed, wrap a blanket around my shoulders, and write in a notebook. Not long, beautiful entries, just small, simple things. Today, I walked to the mailbox and back. Today, Lily laughed at a joke on TV and it was the best sound. Today, I did not cry until after lunch. That is progress. I wrote letters to David too. Letters I never sent. Some of them were angry. "How could you?" I wrote once. "How could you leave us in the hardest moment of our lives? Did our years mean nothing to you?" Some of them were sad. "I miss the way you used to hum in the morning," I wrote another time. "I miss your socks on the floor. I miss the sound of your key in the door." Some of them were almost kind. "I hope you are getting help," I wrote. "I hope you are talking to someone. I hope you are not just running without ever stopping to look at what you lost." Putting the words on paper helped. It took the storm in my head and gave it a place to live that was not inside my chest. Months passed. My hair began to grow back, soft and thin at first. I would catch my reflection in the mirror and almost not recognize myself. But there were still my eyes, still my mouth, still the small scar near my eyebrow from when I fell as a child. I was still me, changed but me. My body slowly grew stronger. At first, I walked from the bedroom to the kitchen and back, then to the front door and back. One day, I walked all the way to the small park 2 blocks away with Lily beside me, ready to catch me if I stumbled. We sat on a bench and watched children play. The sun felt warm on my face. A breeze moved the leaves. "I remember coming here when I was 5, Lily said. "You used to push me on the swings." "I remember," I said. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you think you will come back?" she asked suddenly. I knew who she meant. I took a breath, let it out slowly. "I think," I said carefully, "that the man we knew, the man we loved, is not the same man who walked out that door. If he ever comes back, he will be someone different. And you and I will be different too." "That is not an answer," she said. "No," I agreed. "It is not." The truth was, I did not know. He sent money sometimes. Small amounts, not enough, but something. He sent short texts on holidays. "Happy birthday," "Merry Christmas." Nothing deep, nothing real. He never called. Sometimes, late at night, I would imagine him sitting in his mother's house, in his old room maybe, staring at the ceiling like I had once done. I would wonder if he ever felt the emptiness where we used to be. I decided something slowly over time. I decided that I would not wait for him. Not with my body, not with my heart. Waiting is its own sickness. It eats your days, one by one, as you sit by the window of your life, watching for a car that may never turn into your street. I could not do that. I had already come too close to losing my one and only life. So I made a choice. I chose to move forward, even if I had to move very slowly. I joined a support group at the hospital. Once a week, I would sit in a circle with other people who had been sick. Some were still in the middle of their battle. Some, like me, were somewhere in between, no longer in the darkest place, but not yet back in the light. We talked. We cried. We listened. One woman shared how her husband had never missed a single appointment, how he had slept in an uncomfortable chair for weeks just to be near her. Another shared how her partner had left the country, unable to face watching her hair fall out. Our stories were different, but our pain had similar shapes. I used to think, I said to the group one evening, that if someone really loved you, they would stay no matter what. That love alone made people brave. But now I think it is not that simple. Some people love you as much as they are able, but their own fear is bigger than their love. That does not excuse what they do. It does not take away the hurt, but it means their leaving is more about them than about you. A man across from me nodded slowly. My wife left too, he said quietly. I thought it meant I was not worth staying for. You are, I said. We all are. Their leaving does not measure our worth. Saying those words to him, I realized I needed to say them to myself too. I began to build a new kind of life, not the life I had imagined. Not the life with Sunday family lunches and shared vacations and two old people holding hands on a park bench. A different life. Smaller in some ways, richer in others. I learned how to budget our money more carefully. I learned to accept used clothes and donated furniture without shame. I learned which food bank was kind and which one made you feel judged. I learned to cook simple meals that did not take much energy. Soups, stews, rice with vegetables. Sometimes we ate cereal for dinner again like I used to before I met him. But now it was with my daughter across the table, her feet touching mine under the chair. We laughed more often than I ever thought we would after all that had happened. We laughed at silly shows. At my uneven new hair. At the time I burned the toast so badly the smoke alarm cried louder than we did. We cried too. Some nights I would find Lily sitting on the floor of her room, her back against the bed, tears rolling down her cheeks. I saw a father at school today, she would say. He was helping his daughter with her project. I hated him for a second just for being there. It is okay to feel that, I would say, sitting beside her. It is okay to be angry at what you did not get. Will I ever stop missing him? She would ask. I think you will always miss the good parts, I would answer. And you will learn to live with the space where he should have been. It will not feel as sharp forever. One day you will look at that space and feel more peace than pain. Do you feel that now? She would ask. Sometimes, I would say. Not always, but sometimes. Time passed. Seasons changed. We went from heavy coats to light jackets to short sleeves and back again. My checkups at the hospital spread out more. From every week to every month to every 3 months. Each time I would sit in the waiting room, my heart ticking faster than the clock on the wall, waiting for the doctor to say, everything looks stable. Or, we see something, we need more tests. One day, years later, he smiled at me across his desk. Your scans look good, he said. It has been long enough now that I can say your chances are much better. We will still check, of course. But I want you to start thinking of yourself not just as a patient, but as a survivor. The word survivor tasted strange in my mouth, heavy, big. I walked out of the hospital that day into bright sunlight. I stood on the sidewalk for a long time, feeling the warmth on my face. I had survived, not just the cancer, not just the infection, not just the hospital bed with the uneven light on the ceiling. I had survived him leaving. I had survived the silence after the door closed. I had survived the nights when my own thoughts scared me more than any test result. I walked home slowly, feeling each step. The world looked very sharp and clear. The leaves on the trees, the cracks in the sidewalk, the faces of people passing by. When I reached our building, I took the stairs a little faster than usual. My heart pounded, but in a good way. I opened the door to our apartment. The smell of something cooking came from the kitchen. Lily stood at the stove, stirring a pan. You are back early, she said, turning. The doctor said I am a survivor now, I said. She blinked. Then she smiled, wide and bright. Of course you are, she said. You have always been. We hugged in the small kitchen, the steam from the pan rising around us like a soft cloud. It was not long after that day that I saw him again. It was a Saturday. The air was cool. We were at a small bookstore downtown. Lily wanted a new book for school. I walked between the shelves, running my hand lightly over the spines. The smell of paper filled the air. I turned a corner and almost walked straight into him. He stood there holding a book. Time had changed him. His hair was thinner. There were more lines on his face. His shoulders were a little more hunched. He froze when he saw me. The color drained from his face. Anna, he said, my name coming out like a question. I stood very still. My heart raced, but my voice when it came was steady. Hello, David, I said. For a moment, the noise of the store faded. It felt like we were back in that little coffee shop years ago, just the two of us in a shared bubble of time, except we were not those people anymore. How are you? He asked, his eyes searching my face, my body, as if he was trying to measure the damage. I am alive, I said. I am managing. He nodded slowly. His eyes filled with something like guilt. Or regret, or both. I heard from Mom that your last test was good, he said. I am glad. Thank you, I said. There was a heavy pause. I am sorry, he blurted then. The words came out in a rush. For everything, for leaving, for the way I did it. I think about it every day. I was a coward. I was so scared. I felt trapped. I did not see a way out except to run. But that is not an excuse, I know that. I looked at him. In all the years since he left, I had imagined this moment many times. In some versions, I yelled. In others, I turned and walked away. In some, I forgave him completely, and we cried in each other's arms. Reality was quieter. I know you were scared, I said slowly. I know you felt trapped. I know you were drowning in your own way. I see that now more than I did then. He looked surprised. That does not change what you did, I continued. You left your wife when she was fighting for her life. You left your daughter when she needed you more than she had ever needed anyone. That will always be true. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I know, he whispered. I do not expect you to forgive me. I took a breath, let it out. I have been working for a long time on not carrying hate for you, I said. Hate would poison me more than it would ever punish you, so I let it go piece by piece. Not because you deserve it, but because I needed to heal. He swallowed hard. I do not hate you, I said. I will never trust you the way I once did. I will never go back to what we were, but I do not hate you. A tear rolled down his cheek. I am so sorry, he said again, but softer now. I know, I said. We stood there, two people in a bookstore, holding the weight of so many years between us. Do you think she would ever want to see me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily, I do not know, I said honestly. That is not my choice to make, it is hers. She has a lot of pain, a lot of anger. If you reach out to her, you must be ready to hear those things without asking her to make you feel better. I understand, he said. We said goodbye then. I walked away with my heart strangely light. There was no dramatic ending, no loud scene, just two people who had once shared a life, now standing on opposite sides of a line that could not be erased. Later that day, I told Lily I had seen him. We sat on the couch. The evening light came in through the window, soft and golden. He said he is sorry, I told her. He said he thinks about it every day. She looked down at her hands. Do you believe him? She asked. Yes, I said. I think he is sorry. I also think he cannot undo what he did. She was quiet for a while. He asked if you might want to see him, I said gently. I told him that is up to you. She took a deep breath. I do not know, she said. Part of me wants to scream at him. Part of me wants to hug him. Part of me never wants to see his face again. All those parts are allowed, I said softly. You do not have to choose today or ever if you do not want to. Do you think I should? She asked. I think, I said carefully, that sometimes meeting the person who hurt you and seeing them as human can take away some of their power over you. But it can also reopen wounds. You have to ask yourself, what would I hope to get from seeing him? And what could I lose? She nodded slowly. I will think about it, she said. That night after she went to bed, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. The street outside was quiet. The lights from the neighboring buildings glowed softly. I thought about the girl I had been, walking into that coffee shop for the first time. The woman who had said yes in a small kitchen. The young mother painting the maybe room yellow. The sick woman staring at a white hospital ceiling. The wife reading a short, cold text while machines kept her heart going. I thought about the woman I was now, still fragile in some ways, stronger in others. I had thought for a long time that my life had ended not once but twice. First with the diagnosis, then with the door closing behind him. But here I was, breathing, living, laughing sometimes, crying less often, making tea in the evenings, folding laundry with my daughter, going to the park on sunny days, going to the hospital for checkups and leaving again. I realized something sitting there by the window. When he left, I had thought, I am alone. I had said it like a curse, like proof that life was cruel, but I was never truly alone. There was my daughter, her small hand always reaching for mine, even when her own heart was broken. There was my mother's voice on the phone, steady and soft. There was Sarah with her casseroles and her jokes and her serious eyes that saw more than I said. There were nurses who squeezed my hand when the news was hard. There were strangers in waiting rooms who smiled at me with understanding. And slowly, there was me. There was the part of me that refused to give up, even when another part whispered that it would be easier. There was the part of me that learned to sit with pain without running from it. That learned to be gentle with a body that had been cut and poisoned and stitched back together. There was the part of me that, even when my heart was shattered, still noticed the way the light fell on the floor in the morning, still tasted the sweetness of a ripe peach, still listened for my daughter's laugh. That part of me had become my closest companion. In the end, that is what saved me, not a dramatic act of bravery, not a new love sweeping in to fix what was broken, not forgiveness that washed everything clean, just small, quiet choices to wake up again, to take one more step, to answer the phone when help called, to let go of hate even if I could not yet find full forgiveness, to look at myself in the mirror, at the scars and the new hair and the tired eyes and say, You are still here. You matter. You are enough. If you are listening to this now, maybe with tears in your eyes, maybe with a heavy weight in your chest, I want to tell you something clear and simple. When someone leaves you in your darkest hour, it is not a measure of your worth. It is a measure of their fear. It is a measure of their limits. You are not less deserving of love because they walked away. You are not less strong because you cried. You are not foolish because you believed their promises. You are human. People leave sometimes, in small ways and in big ways. They leave through doors and through silence. They leave by dying and by choosing to live somewhere else. But others stay. Sometimes the one who stays is the friend who sits with you in a quiet kitchen. Sometimes it is the nurse who holds your hand at 3 a.m. Sometimes it is the child who says, "We will be okay," even with fear in her eyes. And sometimes it is you. You stay. You stay with yourself. Through the long nights and the hard mornings. Through the appointments and the bills and the empty chairs. You stay when the people you thought would hold you up let go. You learn to sit with your pain, to breathe through it, to make room for it and for joy, side by side. I once believed that my story would end in a hospital bed, with a beeping machine and an empty chair. Now I know my story ends differently. Not with him walking away, but with me walking on. Not with a door closing, but with a window opening to a morning I thought I would never see. I still have scars. I still have days when fear knocks on my door and I have to sit it down and say, "I see you, but you cannot drive today." I still sometimes wake up in the night and for a moment reach for the space beside me out of old habit. I still sometimes hear a key in a door down the hallway and feel my heart jump, even though I know it is the neighbor. Healing is not a straight line. It is not clean and neat, but it is real. Step by small step, breath by careful breath, I have built a life that is mine. Not perfect, not easy, but honest. Quiet, true. If there is any lesson in all of this, it is maybe this. We do not always get to choose who stays with us in the storm, but we can choose not to abandon ourselves. We can choose kindness for our own tired hearts. We can choose to see our own courage, not just our wounds. We can choose, even after the deepest betrayal, to open our hands again to the small, gentle gifts of each day. The smell of tea in the morning. The sound of rain on the window. The warmth of a hand in yours. The soft rise and fall of your own breath as you fall asleep, knowing that, whatever happens next, you have already faced more than you thought you could and you are still here. You are still here. And that is not just something. That is everything.